Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Curiosity Hotline, where we explore global issues that shape our everyday lives. I'm Deidre.
And I'm Hayne. Today, we're discussing a topic that affects nearly every closet in the world: fast fashion. Fast fashion refers to a system where companies produce clothing at extremely high speed, rapidly copying trends and selling them at very low prices. Behind the scenes, this industry is built on a massive global network. Design teams in wealthier countries, factories in lower income nations, and international shipping systems that keep clothes moving constantly.
Fast fashion brands often release hundreds of new styles every week, encouraging consumers to buy more and discard more. The clothes are cheap, trendy, and accessible, but this speed comes with important ethical questions.
Today, we're going to explore those questions from multiple perspectives. First, we'll talk with a buyer whose attitude toward fast fashion completely changed. Then we'll interview the CEO of one of the fastest growing fast fashion companies, Mr. Choi.
Finally, we'll speak with a global community researcher who studies the industry's real impact on workers, diversity, and vulnerable communities. Our goal today isn't just to inform, it's to connect these discussions to diversity, empathy, and global citizenship, and to think about what ethical consumerism means for all of us. We'd like to welcome our first guest, a buyer who used to shop fast fashion regularly, but eventually learned more about the system behind it. Thank you for joining us.
Let's start with your experience. You told us that at some point you realized there was a darker side to fast fashion. What exactly made you aware of those issues?
As a buyer, I once believed fast fashion was simply a fun and affordable way to follow trends. However, during preparatorium, I studied fast fashion deeply and discovered the harsh working conditions in manufacturing sites and the enormous environmental damage caused by this industry. That experience made me realize that every purchase has real consequences for both people and the planet.
It sounds like this discovery changed your mindset. How did it influence your shopping habits or the way you think about clothing?
It definitely changed the way I approach shopping. I do not rush into buying clothes just because they are trendy or cheap anymore. Instead, I try to look into where and how the clothes are made. I also make an effort to cut down on impulsive purchases and choose pieces that will last longer. Now, I try to treat clothing not as something disposable, but as something worth caring for. Overall, this shift pushed me to be more responsible and thoughtful as a consumer.
Many people still aren't aware of the real conditions inside garment factories. When you learn more about labor issues, especially in places like Bangladesh, did anything shock you or stick with you?
Yes, there were several things that truly shocked me. When I learned about the garment factories in Bangladesh, I was struck by how poorly workers were treated. Many of them work incredibly long hours without proper breaks in buildings that are not even safe or clean. Some workers even suffer serious physical pain and mental stress because they have no choice but to keep up with the fast production pace. What stayed with me the most was the idea that my desire for quick and cheap fashion might be pushing these workers to endure such hardships. It made me feel that the comfort and satisfaction I get as a buyer often come at the expense of their well being. That realization has been very difficult to ignore.
Thank you for being open about your experience. It's important to hear how ordinary consumers connect with these global issues.
So let's look deeper into the industry. Please welcome our next guest, Mr. Choi of Temu, a major name in the fast fashion world.
Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Choi. I won't beat around the bush. People call your company the primary culprit of environmental destruction. What do you have to say about that?
Thank you for the honest question. But let's put emotions aside and look at the reality. People believe that small eco brands selling tumblers will save the planet, but that is a romantic illusion. It's like trying to fight a forest fire with a water pistol. To stop the climate crisis, you need to change the system. And that requires not just good intentions, but massive capital and scale, which can actually dominate the infrastructure. We are not the cause of pollution. We are the only one realistic solution.
Hmm. So only scale can change the world. But what about overproduction? Isn't the fundamental problem that you make too much and throw it away?
That is the biggest misconception among the public. We are no longer just a clothing company. We are a data company. We use AI to predict global desires in real time. We don't produce until the demand is there. This is our zero inventory strategy. If there are no piles of clothes in warehouses, how can overproduction exist? And technology isn't enough. That's why we started the Shop to Plant project. Every time you buy an item, we plant a real tree into the Amazon. So don't feel guilty. Your shopping is not a waste. It is gardening for the planet.
Wow, shopping is gardening, buying clothes and planting trees. Hearing this, I kind of want to open that myself, Mr. Choi. Thank you for your insights today.
My pleasure. Just remember, the more you participate, the greener the world becomes.
Thank you for sharing your perspective. Later in the episode, we'll hear how your claims compare to the experience of workers and communities who are directly affected by the industry.
For now, let's shift to someone on the research side.
To understand the bigger picture, we want to bring in someone who studies these issues professionally.
Our next guest is a global community researcher who examines labor systems, diversity, and the social impact of the fast fashion industry. Thank you for being here with us today. Before we jump into the details, I want to circle back to something we heard earlier. Mr. Choi talked about corporate scale as if size itself could save the planet, almost suggesting that big companies automatically become environmental heroes. But a lot of the issues we discussed, like toxic dye pollution or mountains of discarded clothing piling up in low income regions, exist because production happens at such a massive scale. With that in mind, I'd really like to hear your take. How do you view that claim?
Scale alone has never made an industry sustainable. In fact, many of the harms documented by Brick and colleagues in 2018, untreated dye runoff, huge volumes of waste exported to the global south, are consequences of operating at enormous speed and volume. So when Mr. Choi frames scale as the solution, he's essentially flipping the real cause and effect. The environmental damage we see today isn't due to not enough scale. It's the direct result of producing too much and too fast.
Right. And it connects to another point he made. Earlier, Mr. Choi insists that AI and a zero inventory system solve overproduction. It sounded polished, but something didn't quite line up. If new items keep appearing every week, isn't that still driving waste?
Exactly. AI might reduce how much it sits in a warehouse, but it doesn't change how much gets manufactured overall. Kabir's 2022 study shows that garment workers in Bangladesh still deal with unsafe buildings, sanitation issues, and exhausting schedules. Conditions driven by relentless speed and volume, not by storage problems. And zero inventory definitely doesn't mean zero waste. Clothes simply move from warehouses into people's homes, and eventually into landfills or the secondhand markets of low income nations. The waste doesn't disappear, it just shifts from location.
And one last thing, his shop to plant project. Planting a tree for every purchase sounds comforting, but it also felt like it might distract from the bigger picture. Can buying more clothes really help the planet?
Tree planting can be meaningful when it's long term and well managed, but it doesn't erase the footprint of fast fashion. A single tree can't offset pollution from fiber production, dyeing, wastewater, shipping, and eventual disposal. And many carbon offset trees never survive long enough to make a difference. So when consumption is framed as environmental restoration, it gives emotional reassurance without touching the root problem. We're producing and consuming far too much.
Thank you. You've untangled this point so clearly. Your perspective really helps us see where the industry's promises drift away from what communities around the world are actually experiencing.
Today, we heard three contrasting perspectives: a CEO defending fast fashion's speed and affordability, a buyer who became aware of its hidden costs, and a researcher revealing the industry's deep impact on global communities.
Fast fashion isn't just about clothing, it's about labor, the environment, global inequality, and how our choices affect people we may never meet.
As global citizens, we have a responsibility to practice empathy, to realize that our clothing comes from real people with real stories.
We also need to value diversity, especially the cultural and economic diversity of communities around the world whose labor supports this industry.
And most importantly, we must act with global citizenship in mind. This means buying less, choosing longer lasting items, supporting ethical brands, and educating ourselves about where our clothes come from.
Thank you for joining us on Curiosity Hotline. Until next time, stay thoughtful, stay informed, and continue to explore how your choices connect you to the world.